Blake Lively just won the worst victory I have ever seen in a courtroom. A win so humiliating, so backwards, and so self-inflicted that the moment you hear what it actually was, you will never look at her the same again. Because the only thing she walked away with today was a key to someone else's most private moment, and the judge made sure to remind her that it still does nothing to prove her story. And honestly, my opinion of Blake and her team feels like something an old Hollywood legend already said better than I ever could.
And by the way, there's a name for you ladies, but it isn't used in high society, outside of a kennel.
And after reading today's ruling, that line stopped being funny and started sounding like someone saw this coming a mile away. Blake Lively won. At least, that is the bedtime story her supporters are tucking themselves into tonight. A soft little victory blanket that feels warm until you lift a corner and realize it is soaked in cold reality. Because when you actually read the judge's words, the so-called victory shrivels like a cheap balloon left in the sun. It is the kind of win that looks fantastic in a fan edit, but collapses the moment an adult with reading comprehension enters the room. The kind of win you brag about only if you hope no one checks the receipts. The ruling on Jamie Heath is the perfect example. Blake spent months trying to convince the court that Heath was basically the villain in a Lifetime thriller. She wanted him sanctioned, gagged, and glued to the courtroom floor like a misbehaving toddler in timeout. She pushed for the kind of punishment that would have given her a golden head start in trial. But the judge read her motion, tapped the brakes, and essentially said, "You can have the footage, but you are not getting the drama." He refused to label Heath's behavior misconduct. He refused to call it deceitful. He refused to call it bad faith. He refused to hand her even a sprinkle of the credibility kill shot she was clearly begging for. Instead, he delivered the legal equivalent of a polite eyebrow raise. Heath misunderstood the order. He interpreted it narrowly, rather than broadly. That is not malicious. That is not sneaky. That is not sabotage. That is just discovery being discovery. It happens. You correct it. You move on. The judge practically handed Blake a participation ribbon and told her to stop turning procedural hiccups into Shakespearean tragedy. The real kicker is what the judge said about the footage itself. It was almost like he was trying to gently break it to her that this is not the smoking gun she thinks it is. The ruling states that even if the footage aligns with her memory, it still will not resolve the underlying dispute. Translation: the tape is not your Excalibur. It is not going to slay the dragon you have been swinging at for a year. It is discovery, not destiny. He reminds everyone that the footage is deeply personal, extremely sensitive, and locked behind confidentiality rules that practically have Fort Knox envy. He makes it clear that the footage is unlikely to ever be publicly disclosed. Which means even if Blake combs through every frame looking for the clip that validates her adrenaline-charged memory from a stressful day on set, nobody else is ever going to see it. Not the jury, not the public, not the internet detectives she has been quietly counting on. It is sealed tighter than Ryan Reynolds' contract renewals. And what really twists the knife for people is the hypocrisy of it all. Blake keeps insisting she is doing this for women, that she is standing up for female dignity, that this entire lawsuit is about protecting women on set. Yet the only thing she actually walked away with today is the right to rummage through another woman's childbirth. Not footage meant for the film, not something shot for public consumption. A private birth from a woman who is not even part of this lawsuit. A woman who never consented to letting her most vulnerable, intimate moments become evidence in someone else's narrative war. People are sick over it because it feels like a violation no matter what side you are on. Everyone knows someone with complicated feelings around birth. Trauma, joy, grief, hope, loss, healing. It is not neutral ground. And Blake is acting like she can pry into that sacred moment and still hold on to the idea that she is doing this for women, when the truth is that no woman with genuine compassion would ever claim empowerment while digging through hours of another mother's labor looking for a screenshot that makes her story sound better. So what exactly did she win? The right to possess footage that is stuck in legal purgatory, a pile of attorney fees that barely qualifies as a footnote, and bragging rights that fall apart under a single flashlight beam? That is like bragging that you won a car only to find out it has no engine and no wheels. Sure, it is yours, just do not try to drive it anywhere. And then comes the second ruling, the one involving her sanctions motion against Melissa Nathan. This one was not just a loss, it was a gentle judicial nudge, telling Blake to stop swinging at shadows. She argued that Nathan's revised redactions were overbroad, dramatic, suspicious. But the judge looked at the August order, looked at Nathan's compliance, and basically said she did exactly what she was supposed to do. You had your chance to complain, you waited a month too long. That is not misconduct. That is your calendar management problem. There is a pattern forming. Blake files sanctions like she is collecting Starbucks reward points, 10 so far, and the judge keeps declining them like expired coupons. He is not giving her the pretrial punishments she wants. He is not calling the defendants deceptive. He is not buying into the narrative that she is surrounded by scheming adversaries who hid evidence under their mattresses. He keeps saying no. No sanctions, no credibility hits, no preclusions. No courtroom shortcuts. No legal fairy dust sprinkled in her favor. Yet the internet is celebrating as if she just won summary judgment, as if the judge validated her entire complaint in neon lights. But the reality is that today's ruling was not a victory for her story. It was a victory for housekeeping. The judge is clearing the crumbs off the table before trial. He is not delivering moral commentary. He is not signaling whose version he believes. He is simply tidying the procedural mess so the jury gets a clean file. And the irony is almost poetic. Blake has been trying to build her case around the idea that the defendants acted in bad faith, but the judge's rulings keep telling the opposite story. If he believed she was the victim of malicious discovery games, he would have sanctioned someone by now. He would have at least hinted that misconduct was on the table. But instead, he is telling her repeatedly that the defendants did not act with willfulness. They did not act with malice. They did not act with deception. They misunderstood. They complied. They fixed. They moved forward. Meanwhile, Blake keeps pushing these sanctions motions like she is trying to turn the legal system into a high-stakes arcade machine. Insert motion, pull lever, hope something damaging drops out. But all she is getting back are tokens. No jackpots, no credibility hits, no warnings issued to the defendants, no findings that support her broader claims. Just the equivalent of the judge saying, "Let's move on." Her supporters will not say this part out loud, but I will. Today's ruling quietly stripped away one of her favorite talking points, the argument that the defendants hid things from her in bad faith. The judge knocked that right off the table. He ruled that the materials should have been produced earlier only because the definition of concerning is broad, not because anyone was trying to deceive her. The judge practically wrapped that explanation in wrapping paper and sent it back with first-class tracking. And Nathan's ruling makes it even more obvious. The judge is not buying the idea that every discovery hiccup is a conspiracy. He is not rewarding the theatrics. He is not letting the record become a battleground for who can file the most accusations. He is, frankly, telling her to stop dramatizing administrative tasks. So the win she is celebrating is not a win of substance. It is a win of optics. The kind you post on Instagram stories because it looks inspirational if no one zooms in. The kind you wave around like a trophy even though the base is hollow. It is the powdered sugar version of a victory. Looks good from a distance, dissolves on contact. Because at the end of the day, she got what she wanted, the footage. And the judge immediately reminded her and everyone else that the footage probably does not prove what she thinks it does. She got the ruling. And the judge immediately refused to give her the credibility advantage she really wanted. She got her headline. And buried under that headline is a judicial shrug. Sometimes a win is only a win when no one reads the last paragraph of the order. And in this case, the last paragraph tells a story her fans are not ready to hear.
That's my opinion!